All right. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Thursday, September 16th, 2021. This is your evening tropical update. Well, there are no active systems this evening. The remnants of what once was Hurricane Nicholas has pretty much wound down over the Gulf Coast region. The associated moisture, though, you can see is producing a lot of showers and thunderstorms across the Gulf Coast and Florida. Some heavy rainfall today across the peninsula and then up the coast in what is kind of now a sort of decaying cold front. But we do have two invests to continue to talk about. Invest 96L here off the coast of North Carolina. As expected, the system has drifted more northwest over the last few hours and is now kind of close to the Outer Banks. So we also have Invest 95L out here, tropical wave moving through the central Atlantic. Now, neither of these systems have developed. They are still Invest. They are not named areas yet, and the prospects of them developing are still there, but they're not really getting themselves together like we maybe thought they were a day or two ago. Let's go ahead and take a look at the evening Hurricane Center map. This is 96L here, again off the coast of North Carolina. Earlier today, the Hurricane Center left us at 70% when they sent hurricane hunters to investigate it. And looking at the satellite presentation, there's definitely some rotation here. You've got a pretty evident, low to mid-level rotation going on here, but it's broad and it's just not organizing and holding much of any thunderstorm activity. The only thunderstorms are occurring well away from the center of the circulation. So you can see the onshore flow here coming across the Outer Banks in eastern North Carolina this afternoon is producing some, gusty 20, 25 mile an hour winds and some rainfall and whatnot. But as expected, not a high impact event by any means. Hurricane hunters went out there and took a look today what looks like they left out of boredom. I don't know what else we call it. I mean, you can see here they kind of made a pass or two, found literally nothing inside the center, and we're like, all right, see you later, and they just left. I don't know if they had a mechanical issue. They usually fly more than this, or they just said, guys, there's nothing out here, and left. So Hurricane Center wrote this at 2 p.m. The next update is at 8 p.m. I'm recording this a little bit before 8, so I don't think we're going to get an update before 8 out of them. They do. It's usually like 7:45, but this probably comes down or holds here because there is still a chance this does develop off the coast of North Carolina. But for tonight, not a whole lot. Again, you can see some gusty winds out of some folks. Cape Carteret, 22 mile an hour wind gusts. But overall, just a lot of rain and a little bit of rain and some winds. But not really much going on with this system right now. So let's go and look at the GFS model for what this might become. Again, you can see here the low kind of spinning here tonight. It's going to move up kind of close to the Outer Banks by tomorrow morning. This is 12Z tomorrow morning, and GFS does not show any development in that time frame. But as we move off into Saturday, it does show something trying to concentrate a little bit more offshore. Now, this doesn't make a ton of sense because you are going to have some stronger upper level winds in this region that may prevent that from happening. But it does appear that some sort of storm will try to form as it moves away over the weekend. So could have a little subtropical influence. It could just, be kind of doing what it's doing. It's probably going to become more of a subtropical hybrid if I had to guess at this point, because as you move past North Carolina, your water temperatures get pretty cold pretty fast. I mean, your Gulf Stream kind of goes up like this. You get a little bit more time after you leave North Carolina, but as you cross into this region, the water's a lot colder. So we're probably looking at a subtropical system trying to form once it pulls away. But the only impacts from that are going to be some rip currents and swell waves. Not really much else to talk about, as you just generally have this weak high pressure across most of the central U.S. later this weekend. So overall, 96L still has some chance, but likely going to move away and not be much more of a direct impact to the U.S. than what we're already seeing, which is just, some showers and some gusty winds. No big deal. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at 95L other player. And this wave also has a high chance to develop. Hurricane Center has this at 80%. It was 80 and 90 from 2 days and 5 days. Now it's 70 and 80 this afternoon. I would say that the chances may come down on this one too, as the system and the MDR just hasn't been very favorable to most of these storms this year. Larry was one of the exceptions. But we haven't seen a lot of MDR development, which was kind of the case last year, too. If you remember, most of the activity was actually pushed off towards the Western Atlantic, towards our side of the Atlantic, or areas northward. But the actual MDR, the what we call the main development region, which is this region off of the coast of Africa where all these tropical waves emerge and develop, has not been super kind. It wasn't kind last year. Hasn't been a whole lot more kind this year. Most of the activity again has been over here. So 95L kind of in the middle tonight, and it's just not doing very well. Evening satellite presentation, you can see some attempt at spent a little bit of vorticity somewhere up in here, and there's also another little somewhat rotating area south of 10 degrees north. You kind of got these two little weak centers trying to vie for control. But again, no thunderstorm activity. I mean, just really nothing much at all. The only thunderstorms are really back here along a boundary of drier air to the north, and a little bit of thunderstorm activity down here, kind of down towards like where the monsoon trough would be. It's just not very impressive. And the issue for 95L is it's running out of time because it's quickly approaching what we're calling a tropical upper tropospheric trough. We call them TUTS for short. This GFS valid on Saturday. So the GFS from here, where it is today, to Saturday morning shows limited development. 1,009 millibars could be a tropical depression by then, but we have at the 200 millibar level, we have this big, strong upper trough here, and this has been very well forecast. So I go back in the previous runs of the GFS. I mean, the only thing it really changes if you look over the last 4 or 5 runs is the placement of the center of the index of 95L, and you can see 9,009, 1,009, 1,011, 1,012, 1,010. Yesterday's evening runs, had it a little bit stronger, but not much. So the GFS has really been consistent with this trough being here and being in the way, and this is definitely going to blast whatever comes of 95L as it comes along. Now, again, if 95L had already developed for 2 or 3 days, and we're talking about putting a pretty healthy hurricane right here, it may be able to fight off some of this upper shear, especially since it's sort of at the bottom of the trough. It's not so much in the meat of the trough. Maybe it would have been able to kind of push back a little bit and kind of cut that trough off sooner, and maybe would have survived. But it's not gonna. If it's already weak, it's definitely not gonna develop once it hits this. If whatever environment to this point hasn't been favorable, it hits that. Good luck. So the chances of this thing developing aren't zero at this point, but it's definitely becoming less of a threat. And really, on the ensembles here, you can see that at this point, most of them really don't develop the storm all that much before the turn to the north. Now, this turn to the north is forecast by the Euro and the GFS, although the uncertainty regarding where that turn occurs has a massive spread. I mean, anywhere from to the east of Bermuda all the way near the Bahamas, and this is evident on both models. You can see a pretty wide swath here. GFS has some stronger outliers than the European does. GFS kind of shows, I'll show you the general pattern we're talking about here. So to set the stage, this is valid Thursday evening. This is a chart from Tropical Tidbits, and this shows a couple different things. This is low level vorticity. So in your colors here, this is your vorticity. You can kind of show the storms in the low level. Your actual isobars are 500 millibar isobars, which is generally your steering flow. You can kind of see your lows and highs, and then your upper levels. The winds here are upper level at 200 millibar winds. So you can kind of see shear, you can see steering currents, and you can see where the storm may or may not be with this model. It's pretty useful when you're trying to go through kind of sticky situations like this. And as we take this out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can see here the GFS does spin something up by the Antilles. But this is right about when that upper trough is really kind of hammering it. You can see the trough is becoming more cut off at this point, but it's definitely going to influence the storm pretty heavily, and there's likely going to be a lot of shear, and the GFS does subsequently weaken the storm as it comes to this point. So the other thing we want to go back and watch, though, is the progress of 96L, our friend off the coast of North Carolina. So as we talked about, looks like some subtropical development is going to occur with the storm as we go to Saturday and Sunday. You have your upper jet stream kind of going something like this. And at the end of the jet stream here, you have this trough that kind of comes down and it begins to dig at the storm and develop it. So that's kind of where your subtropical development comes in. Development through the jet stream, not development through warm ocean water. And this storm then becomes cut off as you see the jet quickly progresses and it moves away from the storm and it leaves this cutoff low just kind of hanging out over here over the North Atlantic. And what this is going to try to do is leave the door open. You can see right here the ridge at 500 millibars, again, the bars, there's a high cell here, and then there's kind of another high cell kind of over here, but there's generally this break in the high where the storm is, which is near the Antilles, valid early next week, and it's trying to hold the door open for the storm to follow our invest from the North Carolina region that moves off and develops out to sea. That's what 95L wants to try to do on this model. Now, this evolution has been a little bit tricky. As we go back to different forecast runs, you can see that there's varying degrees of certainty with this. For example, about 24 hours ago, the GFS showed the much further distance from these two, and there's more likely this high would close off and force this back to the west. Because really the question is there enough of a weakness right here to is either going to force this system off to the west and to the south, south and west, or is it going to be weaker, as in broken apart into two and allow it to turn northward? So that's kind of the rub with this one, and there's a couple different solutions on the table. GFS for this run does leave enough of a weakness for it to begin to gradually turn northward, and then it gets picked up by the strong upper level winds towards the end of next week and moves away. So I think the bottom line of 95L is we're going to be talking about it for the next several days, but the threat does continues to not be that much. If this was already a pretty significant hurricane or approaching that status, then I think it could kind of bully the tide off a little bit, and then it again would depend if it's going to turn north or not. But as it stands right now, I can't see this being a big deal, and I just don't know when this is going to be a big deal. So we do actually have the 8 p.m. update as on the refresh right before we let you go here. So no big change of the 96L off the coast, 70%. They still think that some sort of tropical depression can form in the next couple of days, and some high seas for that. And they went down to 60 and 70 with this one, so clicking it down another 10%. And still think the environment can be somewhat favorable, so something can still develop. So not much new from the Hurricane Center on that, and that wave moving off tonight could still, it could get going in the next few days as well. So really, guys, that's what I got for you tonight. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of big updates and not a lot of certainty in the forecast. But again, nothing imminently threatens over the next several days. I would keep my eye on the Gulf of Mexico. This is more of just a hunch than anything else. But all this storminess, just, I don't know. Sometimes you get these patterns that get real stormy down here. And sometimes all that moisture can kind of spin up into another storm. Nothing threatening right now or anything, just something to keep an eye on. And we'll watch 96L move off the coast, 95L move towards the Antilles, but it's several more days before we're going to have anything on 95L, and 96L does not threaten the U.S. No other storms threaten us in the next 5 days. So that's what I got for you guys tonight in your tropical update. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.